So the work that I assigned for you to do, those 4 assignments, I changed them to a quiz where you could submit the answers to them. So we're going to go through those together, both of those quizzes right now together. So the trig graphing quiz, what's the amplitude? Well, amplitude is how far I go up and below from the center. So 10. There's the answer to the first one. Going to number 2. Same graph, what's the period? So the period is how far one cycle stretches. So I'm going to trace. All right, that's one cycle of cosine. And if I take that off, and this would be like one cycle of sine. Same period for both, whether it's sine or cosine. So how far does that stretch? And I did a video with the same problem in it before. That's 3.5 pi, so go about another half, so 4 pi. And I did give instructions when you write your answer, you'll put 4 pi for pi. So amplitude is how far we stretch up and down, the period. The period, if it's a cosine graph, we're looking for that shape. If it's a sine graph, we're kind of looking for that shape. Okay, number 3, what's the phase shift? Well, that's how far you move over left and right from the y-axis. So you see this graph is flush with the y-axis. There is no phase shift. And then just put your answer in the blank and, submit it on. I know it's been a while since you've seen some of this stuff. But getting frustrated and quitting, that's not the answer. That's not how we're going to get through this. So you're going to have to put a little time in. You're going to have to research. You're going to just have to do those things. This isn't easy for anybody. It takes a long time to do this. It takes a long time to get these graphs on here. So, we're all putting our time in to make this work. And if this is the way we have to do, then this is just the way we'll have to do. Write an equation in terms of cosine. Okay, so there's my graph. And I did say start your answer with y equal. Amplitude is 10. Amplitude goes in front. The period is 4 pi. But we don't put the period in the equation. We put b in the equation. And that formula was the period equals 2 pi over b. And I think I put this one in a video too. So remember that shortcut? Kind of swap those. So then we got 2 pi over 4 pi. The pi's cancel, so 1/2. And our variable. So there's the equation. So there's number 4. Number 5, what's the amplitude? So if just stretching up on the graph, we see the amplitude goes up to 2, down to -2. Amplitude's 2, right? Period to number 6. Okay, so it looks like that sine shape is right there. So there's one cycle of sine. So 0.25 pi is where it starts, and 2.25 pi is where it ends. Subtract those two. 2.25 pi minus 0.25 pi, and there would be your answer to number 6. Right? It's not impossible to get this stuff. We've had lessons on this stuff, and you did quite well with it. Phase shift. Same graph we had earlier. What's the phase shift? How far from the y-axis did this graph move over? So there's your answer right there, 0.25 pi. That's how far it moved over to the right. So instead of being flush with the y-axis, it moved over a little. That's a phase shift, how far you move over left or right. So like I said earlier, if this is just the way we have to do it with me guiding you through these answers and just walking you through it, then so be it. But don't get frustrated. Don't quit. Now, that's the worst thing you could do. And we're going to write an equation in terms of sine for this graph. So we said the amplitude was 2. The period was 2 pi. So the period's 2 pi. So what number goes in my problem here? So the period is 2 pi over b. B is what's going into the equation. So what number do I put there that would still make 2 pi over that number equal 2 pi? 1. So 1x or just x. The phase shift moved over to the right. So you got those parentheses, it's going to be the opposite signs. And that would be 0.25 pi. So there's your equation for that one. And if you think you got enough to answer the rest of the questions, I mean, go for it. Question 10, what's the period? So if you think you've seen enough examples to kind of help you with the rest of them, you can stop the video and go for it. But after this, I'm going straight into the matrix quiz too. So you can fast forward a little bit if you want to go to those matrix problems if you think you need it. But continuing here, period. So however you want to look at this, you want to look at this as a sine graph going, so think of that as a sine curve. So what is that number? What is that number? Subtract them. That would be the length of the period. Okay, so that's how number 10 is going to work. Just take it off so you can see a little bit clearer. Again, that's this number and this number. Subtract them. That would be the length of your period because I have that sine shape there. So that's one cycle of sine. Phase shift. Okay, how far did I move over? How far did I move over from the y-axis? I think that one's pretty simple to do, right? Amplitude. How far you stretch up the graph, down the graph. The period of this one's a little bit more difficult. So just taking a look at this one. So if I think of this as a cosine curve, upside down cosine curve, it looks like it's stretching from 0 to 0.67 would be one period. And another way to look at that, if I look at it in terms of a sine graph maybe, or another cosine graph, what if I start there and the period ends there? So there's 0.33, there's another 0.33, so you're at like 0.66, which is still very close to 0.67. So my answer, I would accept 0.66 or 0.67. So that one was a little bit more tricky than normal. Vertical shift, so that's going to shift the graph down or up. So how far did the graph move down? Period again, pick out a cycle length. So if you say we got sine here, a sine curve, there's a sine curve, how far does it go? That'd be 6. So subtract those two, and that would be the length of the period. Okay, got 16 and 17 on the same one for you. Okay, the period. The period is 2 pi over b. What is b? It's the number in front of the x, which is 1. So the period's 2 pi. 17, what's the phase shift? Remember the phase shift formula, C over B. C is pi over 6, and B is 2/3. When you divide by a fraction, you've heard me say this 100 million times, when you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction. And then the 3's would just simplify the 3 and the 6, so we get pi over 4. Would be the phase shift. And the way you would write that on your blank, pi divided by 4. And there's a negative sign there, so that means the phase shift is positive. So there's a nice answer for this problem. Okay, 17, we just did it. 18, what's the amplitude? Well, that's the number that's going to lead off the whole equation. So I think that one's staring us right in the face. What's the amplitude in number 18? There's 18 again. 19, amplitude again. You know, what's your leading number? That's going to tell how far you go up and above from the center of the graph. And then number 20, phase shift. Okay, so we got a plus sign. So that means our phase shift is negative. And C is pi over 2. And B is 2 pi. So we're going to have pi over 2 over 2 pi. And then multiply by the reciprocal and simplify. So I'll just kind of leave that one for you to do. Okay, jumping right into the matrix problems. I did a video on this one. You have this answer. Okay, convert this, question 2, convert this system of equations to a matrix equation. So to turn a system into a matrix equation, we put the coefficients. We put the coefficients in a matrix. We put the variables in a matrix. And then equals, we'll have those two in a matrix. And I'm running out of room over here. So just turn that system into a matrix equation. Coefficients, variables, and then the solution to them. And then we'll just kind of pick out which choice would best represent that. What does it mean if the coefficient matrix in a matrix equation has no inverse? Well, if you don't have an inverse, you can't solve the equation. So let that be a hint for number 3. If it doesn't have an inverse, it's undefined. I can't solve an equation with it. So there's a big clue for that one. And I'm pretty sure you want to circle in D, don't you? Question 4. What transformation occurs when multiplying by that matrix? I know it's been a long time since you've seen matrices. You had notes on that. You had a handout on those transformation matrices. So I'll see if you can look that one up. That 0, 1, 1, 0. You should have the notes on that one. Very easy question. Okay, that was number 4. Number 5. So create a vertex matrix for the polygon above. So we're going to take the coordinates. Now we got the point 1, -1. We got the point 7, 1, 7, -1, excuse me. And then you find these 2 points, and you want to write those in a matrix, a vertex matrix. So the way that vertex matrix is going to be set up is you got your x coordinate, y coordinate, x coordinate, y coordinate. And then we're going to find these 2 coordinates and put them right in the matrix too. So another easy question. Just kind of set up that vertex matrix for that problem. And we did this another way. So if you want a nice, easy way to do this problem, just go back to those geometry concepts. So we want to rotate this figure 90 degrees counterclockwise, and what would the new coordinates be once I do that rotation? So remember that rule? So if this is my original point, after I rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise, that would be the point. So let's just take one of these points. Point D is at the point 1, 3. So if I apply this rule to this point, that says to switch the X and Y coordinates and then change the sign of whatever's there. So this point rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise would then be this point. So then we're looking for that, and that's what you do to the other 3 points. So that's what we're looking for this question. So now find a solution. So I'll kind of go through, and this is the last one. So find a solution to this equation. Again, we'll solve this without the matrices. Just give you a nice, easy way to work with, going back to algebra. So if this is the matrix equation, would you agree that this would be the original system of equations? Okay. Now, an easy way to do this is just plug your choices in. Replace X with 1, replace Y with 4. Does that equal negative 20? Okay, if so, let's keep working. The second equation, replace X with 1, replace Y with 4. Does that equal 9? If the answer is yes to all that, then there's our answer. If it's no, then we'll do the other one. So I think plugging in the points is kind of an easy way to do this one. Okay, so tomorrow, 10 to 11 and 1 to 2, first period only. You can log into Canvas and Canvas chat or Canvas conference, and we can have a talk about what's going good, what's not going good, what should we do in the next coming weeks. So I'm not trying to frustrate you. I'm not trying to just give you a bunch of busy work. I mean, we do have a final exam that's cumulative. This is good work for that. So the plan was that we were going to be back in school next week. So those first 4 assignments that I put up, I just put them up on Canvas and just told you to write them on your paper, print them, work them out, turn them in. But since that's not going to work, I created these 2 quizzes where you could submit answers. So the only way we're going to get through this is together. So like I said, don't get frustrated. Don't give up on me. Watch this video, take the notes, submit these 2 grades, and we'll just try to do different things as we go forward through this. I don't want your averages to slip. These 2 quizzes are completion grades. Just do the work. Give it a try. You get your grades. You get your credit for that. There will be things that I'm going to grade right or wrong. I'll probably give you maybe 2, 3 chances, take the highest grade. Haven't got that far ahead yet. So hopefully you can show up tomorrow for one of the conference times. We'll see how it goes with first period, and then I'll start incorporating second period and fourth period into the conference times. So I hope this video helped, and you can always reach out to me if you need any more help with anything. Okay, hope to see some of you tomorrow.